Boba Fett has been a fan-favorite Star Wars character for years, despite his limited screen time and early exit from the original trilogy. Something about his incredible armor and mysterious demeanor captivated fans who are finally getting the exploration of his character that he deserves in the Book of Boba Fett TV show. If that show has piqued your interest in the character, or you've always just wanted to learn more about him, there is a wealth of material in the expanded universe that tells his story both in canon and legends. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Emery, content creator here at Youtini, and I'll be your guide to the expanded universe story of Boba Fett. If you're looking for a quick summary of his backstory or reading material to dive deeper, you're in the right place. Boba Fett, as we know from Attack of the Clones, is an unaltered clone of his father Jango Fett. We get to see the younger years of Boba in the Clone Wars TV show. Basically, Boba plots to get his revenge on Mace Windu, who killed his father, but is thwarted and imprisoned. After leaving prison, Boba jumps into his bounty hunting career, working with other mercenaries including Bossk, Dengar, and Asajj Ventress. Following the end of the Clone Wars and rise of the Empire, Boba made a name for himself working for both Jabba the Hutt and Darth Vader. As we know from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Boba transported Han Solo from Bespin to Jabba's palace in Carbonite. During that time, however, Fett actually made a stop to ensure that Han would survive the time in Carbonite and lost Han during the return of Crimson Dawn, inciting a war of bounty hunters over Han Solo. Eventually, of course, Boba does regain control of Han and delivers him to Jabba, as we know from Return of the Jedi, but this is just an example of the way the expanded universe builds on the story of Boba Fett. So of course, the events of Return of the Jedi show that Boba is thrust into the Sarlacc pit before making his eventual escape as documented in the Book of Boba Fett. And as we see in the Mandalorian TV show, Fett eventually meets up with Din Djarin, gets his armor back, and kills Bib Fortuna to take the old Hutt throne on Tatooine. So that leads us to where we are now with the Book of Boba Fett. Let's jump into the canon material that you can check out if you want to learn more about Boba's story. First, you'll want to check out From a Certain Point of View and From a Certain Point of View Empire Strikes Back. Both contain short stories on Boba Fett along with short stories on a bunch of other characters from the original trilogy. Much of Boba's canon story is told through comics, however. If you want to jump into the comics, check out Age of Rebellion Boba Fett, the Bounty Hunters comic series, and the War of the Bounty Hunters comics. As you can imagine, just from the titles alone, those all feature Boba pretty heavily, including that story I mentioned that incited the War of the Bounty Hunters involving Han Solo. Legends tells a somewhat different story of Boba Fett, differing from canon from the moment of his escape from the Sarlacc pit. I won't go into too much detail on his legend story, but just know that Boba becomes the Mandalore himself and also one of the richest people in the galaxy. If that intrigues you, here are the Legends books you should check out. You'll want to look at Tales from Jabba's Palace, a short story collection, The Mandalorian Armor by K.W. Jeter, which is actually the first book in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, and then Slave Ship and Hard Merchandise to finish off that trilogy. The next two books are part of the larger Legends chronology, so if you're not familiar with things like the Thrawn trilogy, the Jedi Academy trilogy, and the New Jedi Order, you'll want to check those out first before you jump into these books. First is Bloodlines by Karen Traviss, which is part of the Legacy of the Force series that takes place after the New Jedi Order. Now, like I mentioned, this features characters from Legends pretty heavily, so if you're not familiar with those other characters, it'd be hard to jump in right with this one, but this one does feature Boba Fett pretty heavily. The next book I'll mention is Boba Fett, A Practical Man, which is a short story also by Karen Traviss, and that takes place just before the New Jedi Order. Finally, in terms of Legends comics, you'll want to check out Star Wars Omnibus Boba Fett and Blood Ties Volume 1 Jango and Boba Fett. There you have it. If you're a fan of Boba and looking to dive deeper than the Book of Boba Fett TV show, I hope we've helped you find the next book or comic on your reading list. And as always, may the Force be with you.